What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants have some big decisions coming up here. Darren Waller has to make a choice. Is he playing football in 2024, or is he not? And then, if he chooses not to, what will the New York Giants do with that boatload of money that they'll get for Waller's retirement? Now, this is speculation because we don't know yet whether or not Darren Waller is going to retire, but based on what we've seen from different reporters and the fact that he didn't show up to OTAs, there's a good chance that he does retire. Now, the date is important. Today is May 28th. We are a few days from the June 1st deadline, and if he does retire before June 1st somehow in the next couple of days, the salary cap space that the Giants would get then versus after June 1st, completely different. So we want to break down the salary cap implications of a potential Darren Waller retirement and kind of talk about what it would mean for the team and what they could do with the money and whether or not we think that that would be good or bad for this team if he did retire and give them that cap space. Essentially, is Darren Waller worth more than the value that they would get from that cap space and could reinvest elsewhere? That's going to be the conversation in today's episode. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And how are you feeling about the possibility of Darren Waller retiring within the next week?
I'm doing pretty good. Just got back from a bachelor party in Arizona. It was hot as hell. If anyone's ever been there, it's like 95 degrees is cold for them during this time of year. So it was definitely interesting, definitely recovering still. But back at it, talking about Darren Waller. Yeah, this is an interesting situation. I think the Giants drafted Theo Johnson with the idea that Darren Waller was probably going to retire. I mean, obviously going through, his personal stuff, a divorce. Giants wanted to do right by him and give him as much time as humanly possible. Now, like you said, the question really is the $6.7 million the Giants save from Darren Waller retiring or him being released, does that, equate to more value if you spend it elsewhere? What are you going to get for $6.7 million? Well, if you look at what the Giants need right now, we went and got Malik Neighbors. We don't need any more receivers. We don't need any more tight ends. We added 2 free agents there as well. And we don't need, obviously, offensive lineman's always great, but you're not going to get anything for $6.7 million. All the good ones are already off the board. The only place that I could say we could use a veteran would be cornerback, right? Like, that's the only position that I would look at and say, well, yes, like maybe the Giants want to take that $6.7 million, roll it into a guy with experience, someone that can come in and kind of support this group. So there would be the value that you have. However, is the value that Darren Waller is going to bring to the offense when healthy, big asterisk there, is the value he's going to bring to the offense going to, offset not having a established CB2? We already heard Brian Dable and Jerome Henderson say they have a lot of faith in Cordell Flott. He had a little bit of a tough OTAs practice the first couple days, but, that's obviously not anything to be concerned about. It's very, very early in the program. He has plenty of time to get back on his feet and, obviously put together some really strong practices. At $6.7 million, you're not getting a Dory Jackson. You're not getting anyone that's going to be a meaningful impact to this team. You're getting a depth player, like a guy that's going to be competing, maybe as good as Cordell Flott, as good as Nick McLeod. Like, you're not going to get that much, for a veteran. Maybe you go and get someone that's had a couple of injuries in the past, like anybody that may be able to step in and at least compete at a cheaper price point because of those injuries. But I would argue, I think it's time for the Giants. Like, the Giants are probably not winning a Super Bowl this year, so I think now's the chance for us to really give a lot of reps and experience to young players. Guys like, obviously Cordell Flott and, Andrew Phillips and, Tyler Nubin and Malik Neighbors. Like, this is the time to give all of these young guys and help them grow, so that way in 2025, we have a really solid team and a foundation with experience under our belt. So, I don't think adding a CB2 right now is going to make a big difference because you're not getting one of the top guys. A lot of them are already gone. I think that the contributions that Darren Waller makes gives you time to develop Theo Johnson's game and allows him to learn from Darren Waller. So at this point, I don't really care if Waller retires or not retires. I think that, sure, you get a little bit of money and you can spend that wherever, but if Darren Waller stays in the game and he plays well and, obviously he's going through his personal stuff and the Giants will keep giving him as much time as he needs, I think that he can be more of an asset than a liability at only $6.7 million. Again, if he can help the development, help the growth of this offense, take a step forward, and give Theo Johnson a mentor or someone to just at least learn from and watch every day and practice in the way he moves, the way he catches passes, the way he goes about his business, I think that that's a good thing. I think that's a positive thing. Anthony, what do you think about that? I know that you're probably in the same boat as I am. Maybe you think you could use the money differently, but curious to see where you would look to allocate the funds if they did become available.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Giants fans on social media say that they can't wait for Darren Waller to retire so that the Giants can get this cap space and add some more talent to this team. And I think that those fans need to take a look at the free agency market and realize that there is not much talent left to sign. And the 6.7 million that the Giants would get if they cut him or he retired in the next few days, or the 11 point something million that they would get if he retired post June 1st. Sure, that $11 million, almost $12 million, that is quite a bit of salary cap space. You can definitely sign a very talented player with that money. But what very talented player is actually available for you to sign right now? I mean, of the free agents who are actually available to be signed, none of them are going to make you jump out of your seat. We're talking guys like a veteran in Stephon Gilmore at the cornerback position. Stephon Gilmore, at this point in his career, is definitely not a long-term solution for this Giants defense, and how effective will he be going into 2024 is a great question. If you want to look on the offensive line, we're talking guys like Dalton Risner, a guy who struggled to get signed last offseason. Maybe Connor Williams on the offensive line, center/guard, was with Miami last year, coming off of a torn ACL, so what kind of big solution can he be to the line? I'm not so sure. And then if you wanted to replace a tight end with a tight end, the only legitimate quality player remaining on the free agency market at that position is Logan Thomas. So signing him, not necessarily an upgrade. Give me just Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson at that point. So there are Giants fans who are excited about the prospects of Waller retiring, and I think it needs to be recontextualized, and I think they need to realize Darren Waller was second in the team in receiving yards last season. He was still a very good player when he was healthy and on the field. Yes, staying healthy and staying on the field, those were struggles for him last year, and they've been struggles throughout the majority of his career. However, the Giants have more depth at tight end now. So if Waller goes down, Bellinger and Theo Johnson stepping in, not as bad. They have more talent there. Also, because they have that talent there, maybe they don't have to play Darren Waller that much. Maybe Theo Johnson or Daniel Bellinger get looked at as the starters, and Darren Waller is the tight end too. So he plays less, but when he does play, he's more effective and stays healthier. Those are other options for the Giants. I think that there are plenty of benefits to having Darren Waller still on this team and in the lineup for the 2024 season, and I don't think the Giants fans should necessarily be excited about the idea of him retiring. I think that he's still a very exciting player for this Giants offense and can make a massive impact if he's able to stay on the field in 2024. But if he does retire, like I said, there are some of those players that I mentioned, although none of them really stand out to me. None of them really say, hey, we got to go out there and get this player, even with the $11 million that the Giants would get. The only real option that I would think the Giants would have to utilize that money would be through the trade market. If they wanted to trade for somebody, that could be a massive upgrade to their lineup. But even then, who are they trading for? Who's on the block and who's going to make that much of an impact relative to what the Giants have in their lineup already? Because to me, the Giants seem to have solidified pretty much all of their starting spots. They're not going to make any changes really to the receiving core after adding Malik Neighbors. They're pretty much good on the offensive line after signing John Runyon and Jermaine Luminor. They're pretty good in the linebacker core. Their pass rush core is good. Maybe if they were to trade, and find an interior defensive lineman, but even then, you're probably dipping into future draft capital, and that's something the Giants aren't going to want to do as they continue to rebuild this roster. So I don't think there are many options to upgrade this team between now and the start of the regular season. This is not a football team that's in position to make some big splash trade for like an Ayuk or a T. Higgins and make a Super Bowl run in 2024. That's just not the reality of what this football team is. Those teams that make a big splash trade like that, we're talking guys that are in the playoffs perennially. The Giants are not that team. So I don't know if they can make any splash moves with the money that they get if Darren Waller does retire. So, Alex, how do you feel about that? Just kind of the idea that even if the Giants get that money from Waller, what could they possibly do with it that really upgrades this team? I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, right now you're probably looking at that money and saying you're just carrying it into the season and using it if you have any injuries and stuff like that, right? I mean, the Giants right now have $1.1 million in cap space. To me, they probably take that $6.7 million and say, well, let's just take it into the season, in case of emergency. Remember, like a couple years ago, we needed Logan Ryan, needed to pick him up. We needed like $10 million for that. You really want to go into the season with at least $6 or $7 million just in case. So worst case, you just take the money into the season, and that's totally okay for the Giants. So right now, not really looking into what you could spend the money on. I think keeping Waller probably offers more value at this point in time. The Giants can always restructure some contracts if they do need to open up salary space. But I will say this, right? When it comes to Darren Waller, there's an out in his contract. Yeah, you get $6.7 million back, but just to give you some context, next year he'll be 33 years old. He'll have a $15.5 million cap hit, but if the Giants cut him pre-June 1st, they save $10.5 million. So, right now they're saving only they're losing $7 million. Next year they would only lose 5. So keeping him for one more year actually doesn't hurt the Giants. It, in fact, gives them a little bit more flexibility. And they actually save a little bit more money if they cut him next year. So obviously, with that being said, if he does retire now, they do cut him now. Whatever happens, that money will not have any impact on next year. So you won't owe him $5 million next year, which could mean the difference between signing a little bit better of a cornerback, or a little bit better of a offensive lineman. I don't know. It could be any player. That margin sometimes of $5 million is a lot. It could be the difference between beating another team in a bidding war for somebody. So I do think that that's something to keep in mind. The Giants will obviously do the right things. I do think that Joe Shane has been pretty savvy with the salary cap up to this point, and I do think they're doing right by Darren Waller, and I respect the fact that they're giving him that time. But I think that kind of really breaks down the majority of his salary cap situation. I know there's not really been much news going on in Giants land right now. OTA is kind of slowly going through the hoops there and the motions, but I know there was some rumors about the Giants potentially being leapfrogged by the Vikings, and then apparently they wanted to move up and get Malik Neighbors up to 5, and the Chargers decided, well, yeah, we want Joe Alt, we're not going to do that. Vikings walk away with JJ McCarthy, so Giants ended up getting Malik Neighbors. A lot of teams wanted him. It's no surprise, right? He's a really freaking talented young 20-year-old receiver. At his age, he's not even fully developed mentally or physically. So you're looking at a guy that's going to get even better in multiple areas over the next couple of years. And the Giants could have him. I mean, think about this. Stephon Diggs is 30 years old. Malik Neighbors is 10 years younger than him. 10 freaking years, a decade. You know what I mean? That's pretty incredible. He could be a Giant if he plays it. If he reaches his potential, he could be a Giant for 10 years, guys. This guy could be This guy could go down as one of the best Giants receivers ever if we get him, obviously the ball a lot and he ends up reaching his potential. That's how young and talented this kid is. It's no surprise that the Bears wanted to move up, and the Jets wanted to move up. There's a whole bunch of teams that wanted this dude. So I do think that the Giants got lucky getting him as a consolation prize. Not landing a quarterback, but look, getting Malik Neighbors is no consolation. A lot of teams wanted him despite needs at quarterback. The Vikings wanted to move up and get him. So pretty cool stuff. I do think the Giants are going to get a lot better offensively because of his talents, and we'll see what happens long term at the quarterback position.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to watch this season unfold for sure, whether Darren Waller is out there or not. If he pairs up with Malik Neighbors, I think both of them can play off of each other, one another really well, because when you've got Neighbors in the lineup on the outside, and then you have Waller in the middle of the field, again, Waller did have a high volume of targets last year when he was on the field. He was very effective, and he was second on the team in receiving yards. So having him over the middle of the field for defenses to focus in on opens things up even better for Malik Neighbors on the outside. It is interesting that so many teams were vying for Malik Neighbors. Of course, that's not necessarily a shocker. He's a tremendous talent. He was a guy that, going up to the draft, I said, WR1, I like him the best out of any of them in the class, and I thought that he was going to be an absolute stud for whoever drafted him. I'm happy that it was the New York Giants who managed to do that. But there is some interest there about the Minnesota Vikings potentially trying to move off of Justin Jefferson. That is something to consider, and we'll see if he maybe does get moved at some point this offseason, leading into the regular season, maybe during the regular season. Obviously, he wants a big contract. I can almost guarantee you, though, that the Giants will not be in the market for a Justin Jefferson. They don't really have the salary cap space for something like that, and they have enough talent in their receiving core. I don't think that they need to make that move, even though that would be an exciting one. But yeah, I guess that pretty much does wrap this up. It is pretty slow news right now for the New York Giants, but we are still here to provide you all with content regarding this team right here on Fireside Giants. And of course, there will be more OTAs, more practices, more mini camps, all that stuff leading throughout the rest of the next couple of months. And then we get into training camp in July, which I cannot wait for. But soon enough, we'll be doing some player breakdowns and profiles on some of the rookies that the New York Giants have brought on this offseason and kind of break them down and project what we think they will do for this upcoming season in 2024. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned to Fireside Giants, and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.